Good Woche and welcome to the Shir tonight. Motzei Shabbos Breishis, a gesunte winter, and start off with the dedication. It's been dedicated by Pinchas Rabin. Mazel tov for your recent Yom Haledes on Zach Tishri. L'Eilech Yom Shalom Tevis, and in merit of Shneur Zalman ben Sarah Shoshana, amongst all the Yiddish Chayolim who are standing on guard for Am Yisrael in Eretz HaKodesh, that they should all be safe and carry out their missions with safety and come home safely, and we should be see Sati Sholem Ba'oretz V'Shchavtem Ve'ein Macharid. Let's go into our first question for today. It's really not a halacha question, but it's something which has been on my mind a lot recently, about the whole creation of Adam and Chava. You have two versions in the Gemara, whether Adam was created doi partsufin, created two faces back to back, or that Chava was just a lower part of the body of Adam, and then was separated and formed into another body. Either way, the question begs is, why did Hashem create the human species in this two-stage form, in addition to the two stages of creating first off the body from Min HaAdamo, then the breathing into a spirit of life, which is also, I believe, unique for Min HaAdam, but the fact they created first the male, or first the Adam, and then created, put a whole procedure of putting him to sleep and then separating, creating. What was the purpose for that whole exercise? That was the question which bothered me. And what you have on the screen is from Rabbeinu Bachaya. Similar ideas also I see also in the Alshich, and they say the following, that other species, yes, there's a male and there's a female, but each one, let's say, cow eats grass and the bull eats grass, and they have children, they have offspring together, but they don't have a care for one another. There isn't that feeling of oneness between the pair of that species. And this was the achievement of this whole exercise, that the man should feel that his wife is part of him. She will feel that he is part of her, or whatever. They'll feel that unity, the feeling that unit, because originally they were one unit, and that gives the human being the natural feeling of a feeling of oneness, of closeness in mind with their spouse. That's the result of the fact that they were created lechatchila physically as one unit. Let's move on. So someone asks me about in many Sephardic communities, after Ma'ariv, before Oleinu, there is a Shir HaMalos. And he's asking, why don't we say it? So, and he gives me a reference to the Rambam. This is, as you can see on the screen, it's in Perek Zayin Halacha Yud Ches. It's the last halacha of Perek Zayin. He talks about the Seder of Mincha, and also about a bit of Tachnun after Mincha. And then he says, Batfilah So'erev, Koire Kriyas Shema. Then you say the bracha before and after the respective brachas. Soimer Geula L'Tfilah, which is interesting, but let's not go into that. And you daven Shemona Esrei, Uksheyashlim Yeshiv Ma'at V'Yipoter, V'Hameschanein Achar Tfilas Arvis Hareze Meshubach. So he praises the idea of saying Mischanein, to say some supplication, some form of Tachnun after Ma'ariv. in the Tur, in Simin Reish Lamed Zayin, talks about Ma'ariv, and then he brings something similar. He's quoting from, I think, Rav Amram Goen, and he writes there, "B'chosav oid al shem Rav Sholem, Rav Sar Sholem Goen, the leaders of the yeshiva in Bovel, going back 1,500 years ago, they were known as the Goenim. So the most famous are probably Rav Sadia Goen, but so Rav Amram is quoting Rav Sar Sholem Goen. It is permitted to, whatever the word is, to prostrate yourself after Ma'ariv and to Koshus, etc. Eyum Betzibur. V'cheina minig babayis. Beis HaKnesses, cut off a bit. So we're seeing both in the Rambam and in the Tur, the in of saying Tachanun after Ma'ariv. So my understanding is that this minig Sfardim, to say Yishur HaMalos after Ma'ariv, is a form of Tachanun. It's not, they don't put into Tfilas Apayim, but it's some kind of bakosha, which were there. Now, it's interesting because many of the Mekubalim are Sfardim, and they bring this minig. Even Ashkenazim in Israel, it's also quite a lot of them are also saying this extra mizmer after Shemona Esrei before Aleinu, because in Israel the minhag Sfardim seems to have been accepted by many Ashkenazim also in numerous areas. It's a separate discussion. Having said that, there is a concern about saying Tachnun at night. And the reason is because there's a time of dinim and there's a time of chesed and of rachamim. And at night is a time of dinim, and therefore it seems to be inappropriate to start challenging the dinim at that time when they've kind of got their, I don't know, Chas v'shalom to use the word free reign, but there's a certain, that's that time, not to interfere with that time. So this is the background to what we have here in Shulchan Aruch. This is on the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch in Siman Kuf Lamed Aleph. So that's talking about Tachnun. Ein nefilas apayim balaylo mibtam hayadu ale yoidim. Anyone who knows the Alter Rebbe's language in the Shulchan Aruch, this is a euphemism for al pi Kabbalah. In the references they have to the Rekanati, Reb Nachman Rekanati, who was a Makubal. And so this is not saying nefilas apayim, not to say Tachnun at night. Then he says, therefore, if mincha spilled over ad halaylo, don't say Tachnun after mincha. And then he says about skipping Avinu Malkeinu. Now this is because in Nusach Ashkenaz, when Avinu Malkeinu is said, it is said before Tachnun. Therefore he says, if you have this dilemma, so then skip Avinu Malkeinu in order to be able to say Tachnun before nightfall. Then he goes on. Okay, so meanwhile, I just want to conclude this point, that my suspicion is that the reason why the Alter Rebbe does not bring this in the Siddur, although it is mentioned in some of the Sidurei Harizal, is because of this word of not saying Nefilas Apayim Balayla, not to say Tachanunim Balayla. You know that the union of Psuke de Zimra, the word Psuke de Zimra means verses of praise, but we also know that the Zimra becomes a lotion of pruning. This is brought in, I'm sure it's brought in Kotetera, etc. The union of cutting off the undesirable extra growth. So there is a cutting off. This is the Tilim has a power to cut off undesirable growth, and that's part of the cheshbon why we don't say Tilim by night generally. Despite I'm saying that, but as Hashem, towards the end of this year, if we have time, we'll say a couple of Tehillim because it's an emergency matzah, as an exception. But B'derech Klal, we don't say Tehillim Balayla. This has all got to do with this, because Balaylo it's this man of it's Shachas Tedinim, and therefore it's not the time to start cutting away. Now, I wanted to address here, Kevin de Osel Yordon, since we're talking about this. What is the story about saying Tachnun after Shkia? And I believe there's a perception that in Chabad we hold that you can say Tachnun after Shkia so long as it's Bein Hashmoshes. Now, I'm going to read this very carefully. Omikol Makoim, says the Alter Rebbe here, this about not saying Nefilas Apayim Balaylo is only Bevadai Lailo, Avaloi Bevin Hashmoshes. But during twilight, you can still say Tachnun. V'noyagin lipel al pneihem beleil ashmoires. Now is skipping from after Mincha. Is skipping now to Chslichus in the morning. Yeah. Noying lipel al pneihem beleil ashmoires. Now, this is something if Chabad we don't see it bichlal. But in the Slichus, towards the end of Slichus, I'm sure Rabbi Gyalfi will confirm that in the Vel, they put their head down at the end, Vayema David El God, Racham V'Chanun. In Chabad, we don't do it. And it says there, it is in little words, in brackets, it has the instructions don't have Aleph base, because otherwise we would be saying that part of the Nusach, Ein Lipoil. So it's just instructions that we don't do Nefilas Apayim in Slichus. But here he says, Minig Ashkenaz, Lipoil al Pneim al Beleil Ashmoires, or Shmurois, Hoil V'hu Korev L'Yem. Now, just think for a second. The day Lahalocha begins from Alos HaShachar. This is interesting. The day ends by Tzesak HaChavim, and according to the Geonim, Tzesak HaChavim is some 20-something minutes after sunset. The day begins at dawn, which is 72 plus minutes before sunrise. So it's not parallel. It's not symmetrical. The beginning of the day, the beginning of Yoim, is from dawn. The end of day is Tzesak HaChavim, which is shortly after sunset, not 72 minutes after sunset. All right. Now, he says the minig is to say Tachnun, Pnei Filas Apayim in Sliches, Hoyel V'hu Korev L'Yom, although it's not Mamish Day, but it's Korev L'Yom. Yesh Noyagin Laharich B'Sliches, Ad Nochen Hayom. There are those who don't say Tachnun in Sliches whilst it's still dark, until it's Nochen Hayom, until it's clearly day. And only then do they say Nefilas Apayim. So here we're seeing that there is a hesitation, even though it's it's after dawn, but you're not sure whether it's mamish. So you wait with the slicha. You stretch out the slichas, so that the end of slichas, where there is Nefilas Apayim, is when it's mamish clearly day. In the Sefer HaMinhagim, where it says our minhag of not to do Nefilas Apayim in slichas, give us a reference to this line over here, that we don't do Nefilas Apayim in slichas because of the concern of saying slichas. We don't of doing Nefilas Apayim at night, after dawn, before sunrise. So, Lanias Daiti, if you're concerned after dawn, but it's not Mamish Day, and you don't say Nefilas Apayim, how much more so you should be concerned by Lailo after Shkia, because it's already you're going into Nacht. Yeah, so for the same reason why it says in Sefer HaMinhagim that we don't do Nefilas Apayim in Slichas, that very same reason should say that we should not be saying Tachnun after Shkia. So, although the first opinion here is that it's okay to say Tachnun and Shkia, but I'm seeing that Lemaisa, our minhagim is following the second opinion, that we are concerned to say nefil sapayim by shofik alayla. So that should apply to a mincha the same as by slichas. Okay, that's a maimer hamusge. Rabbi Yirmiyah is asking, is zman as dinim only until chatzos laila? Probably more so, more until chatzos, and that's why the Moshe saying tilim, etc. after chatzos is okay. You're right, but possibly there may be madregas in that. All right, let's move on. So in Yonah de Yoim, unfortunately, I'll say the Hayoim, people are very anxious, and Baruch Hashem, I mean, all the scares which were going around about Friday, Baruch Hashem, as we went through Ruika Hate, and as one person said, that their kavona is the kavona of the Tzad Shekeneged Yimach Shemom is to make people frightened, to demoralize, and we have to have the strength not to fall into that. Kolponim. So it's a large city in Europe, and there's a shliach there. So one of the shluchim is a higher profile. He has a bodyguard, but this shliach is not a nat madrege, so he doesn't have a bodyguard. But he was advised to carry with him a piece of either telephone or something in case he sees something happening. He should be able to call for help right away. It's on Shabbos. So, of course, you could say stay home, but that's for sure not the Eitzah. And therefore, he's asking a question: is there a way that he's allowed to carry with him some piece of equipment? So, this is an interesting question. I've had this years ago also. And so, when you have someone who's a choyle, Rahman al-Islam, who needs to have a medication in case they need it, so then a choyle is allowed to do a melocha deiraisa shkelach hayad. So therefore, a choyle who, let's say, is dependent on, he has to have glucose in case they have a hypo. So then they have a bit of glucose in, let's say, in the hat or inside their sleep, and so then they can go in the street, and in case they need, they have it with them. So but that's because there's a choyle. Then you have the people who are, let's say, Hatzola, etc. They may be called for Pekuach Nefesh. Here it's a bit different. He's not a Hatzola, and Baruch Hashem is healthy, but just to be able to walk in the street to go to shul. So can he rely on the heter of carrying this phone kalachayat? So a very interesting tshuva of Reb Moshe Feinstein, where he says, he was asked, you can see the date, it's Tov Shin Lamed Tes, yeah? The Hatzolah Chavre, about carrying with them a walkie-talkie. No, the emissaries, you could tell the Hatzolah guys, listen, you're on duty, so you have to stay home near a phone. You mustn't leave the house. But he says, if we'll do that, then you can expect that the numbers who will, join Hatzolah will be dropped dramatically. No one wants to volunteer to be grounded for hours on end, even with a rota. So the Rebbe comes with a brilliant idea. He comes up and he says, this walkie-talkie, to be a member of Hatzolah is a chashivas. So like you have, you can have an ornament, a medal, which you're allowed to wear because that's an adornment of your persona, you're a chashiv a person. You have to go around with a medal. So to walk around with a walkie-talkie, is a member of Hatzolah. So that makes him Odom Choshev. So it's a tachshit. A person is allowed to wear a tachshit. So he comes up with this idea that they would be allowed to wear their walkie-talkie in a visible way, dafka visible, because in this way it's a tachshit, adding to the chashivas. Now it's interesting. I don't know whether that is a practical solution nowadays, because nowadays I don't think walkie-talkies are bichlal. I think they're obsolete now. Now it's phones which you keep in your pocket. So I have to look at other eitzes. One eitzah I would say is if you if it's a short walk and you can make a point of never stopping in the Rosh Hashanah, if it's a short walk from your house till the shul, let's say, going from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah without stopping in Rosh Hashanah, that would be an Issa D'Rabbanon. Then it would be Issa D'Rabbanon Chilach Hayad. I don't know. I'm not sure how to work that out. I was told that the Hatzalah members here at Issa Savadil, they would actually have one at home and one in shul, but they don't carry equipment with them in Rosh Hashanah. All right, let's move on. A difficult question. Person, there's a commode in the room for someone who needs it, obviously, and the question is from not necessarily the person who needs it, but the other person who's there with them. Are they allowed to say words of Torah and tefillah, etc., in the presence of that piece of furniture? So let's read the Shulchan Aruch and Siman Pei Gimel. It's actually Nisha Zeglad. B'nei Odom. This is the Lashon HaMerash of the Mechaber. B'nei Odom sheyesh lehem safsel nokuf. The people who have a bench, a seat, a stool, which has a hole in it, and v'niftin olav, and they use it for relieving themselves. Muter likres kriyas shema kenegdoi. It's permitted to read Shema in the presence of that stool. Kevan she'ein hatzoy ala nekev, because the stool itself is clean. V'gam ein hagrav tachas hanekev, and the chamber pot is not there. V'oich hanekev tomid mechuste badaf. Plus, the opening is covered with a lid. Now this is the Lashon HaMechaber. And on this basis, it seems to be no problem. A commode has got a closed lid; it's not a problem. The Lashon HaMechaber is a source of the Mordechai, and in the Mordechai, it seems to be that he sees this as a Beis HaKiseh, and therefore you would have to keep a distance of Dal Damas from it, etc. And this Magen Avraham and the Taz, they challenge the simple presentation of the Shulchan Aruch, and they are machmir. So now I'm going to read the Alter Rebbe follows them. Now let's read the Alter Rebbe carefully. B'nei Odom sheyesh lehem safsel nokuv shenifnim olav. So they've got this stool which is used for relieving. V'chein ba'osim batim. This is the from the Taz. Sheyesh b'techem kisois ktanim nekuvim letzerech hayelodim ktanim shebabayis. So they have little stools for the children who aren't able to go to the facilities on their own. So then one should have them covered at the time of davening, etc. Or you take them out when you're davening alone. Even they're clean. Because they're used for that purpose. It's got the status of Beis HaKiseh. Even if it's clean, it doesn't have any tzoya, because it's got by status of Beis HaKiseh. Now that basically is saying that piece of furniture, even though there's no trace on it of anything, but still it's got a status of Beis HaKiseh, and it'd have to be covered, or you'd have to go a distance of Dal Amis. And if it's in front of you, and similarly, we see in the Mishnah Brura, after he quotes the Shulchan Aruch, and he says, "Aval harbe achronim choilkin olav," disagree with the Shulchan Aruch, and they say there's got a din of Beis HaKiseh yoshon, since it's and therefore one shouldn't say Shema or Davar Shebekdusha in its presence. But then he all right. So now, my question here is, and we're going to we read one more source, and whether the fact that it's got a seat, which is a padded seat, which is it makes it look just like a regular piece of furniture, is that considered enough to call it covered? So the Mishnah Brura refers to this. This is the Derech HaChaim. Although it says a Shara Koilel, that's because in the volume of Shara Koilel they also printed the Derech HaChaim. So Derech HaChaim, you have the the source, it's Siman Chavov, Seif Chavov. Safsal ha'osim nekev v'shom amidin geref v'niften al zeh afal pisha hitziu ha'geref v'somu daf al ha'nekev. Even there's a lid on it, still that stool has got a dinner base akisa. You'd have to cover it. V'nirali de'ima safsal meyuchad li yeshiva. If it's really it's a seat. K'moy kisa shem yachtin li yeshiva. It looks like a regular chair. And it's got a cushion on it. When necessary, they take away the cushion, and then they would use it. Then he says, then he says it is okay. So my feeling, my tendency is to say that what's the difference whether the cushion is a totally separate unit or the cushion is hinged onto the back of the chair, but it is covered, and that's what he said. Therefore, it's covered. So first of all, the Mechaber says it's okay. But even if you take the Tzad HaMachmirim, but still you're going to see here that if it's covered, it's okay. That if it's covered with a cushion, it's okay. Now you're asking, this cushion called the cushion which covers. All right. I think one could rely on this to say it is adequate. And therefore, a commode which looks like a regular chair, which has got a padded seat or whatever, which ostensibly looks like a regular piece of furniture, I think it would be permitted to say Shema, etc., in its presence. One be machmir to cover it, that would be more glad, but it can be a big tircha. Person who's taking care of a person who needs such a thing has so many other things to worry about. I'd like to, try to make life easier for them. Okay, let's go on to the next thing. Next question. Chassidim of yesteryear, not so long ago, we used to see the Mendel Futterfas, others would take the talus and put it over the front, over the head, and say the bracha, and then take it off and twist it round to the back, and then put it round and do atifa, wrap it round. So why has this become basically obsolete? So it's quite an interesting topic. Bichlal, I would like to say that with the atifa, I see people are very relaxed in the atifa. Some people are standing there and talking whilst they're in the middle of doing it. That's that's another parsha. But just a little, just covering their eyes with it. Just the atifa is to be thrown over the back, the left shoulder, and you stay in that position for which is a couple of seconds. And they say whilst you're doing so. Good, but that's another discussion. But meanwhile, the timing of the bracha. So now we have two lashonos of the Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan Aruch and in the Siddur. In the Shulchan Aruch, you can see here the lashon. As you begin wrapping, before you wrap yourself totally, you'd say the bracha lesata b'tzitzis. In the Siddur, the Alter Rebbe also has hilchos tzitzis, and he says you should do the atifa standing, the bracha should be standing, the chatchila. V'koidim sheyaschil esatev yevorich. You should say the bracha before you begin the atifa. So you got a very, very clear difference. In the Siddur, he says before you start. In the Shulchan Aruch, he says once you start, before you do it completely. So there's a clear, difference between them. To explain a little bit more the reasoning behind these two shittas. It's two shittas. We know that there's a concept of every birchas hamitzvahs should be oiver l'asiyoson, should be said prior to the act. I believe I heard from a shver once the idea of machshava dibur u'maisa. You think about the mitzvah you're going to do, you say the bracha, and then you do the pi'ula, you do the mitzvah. Okay. So that's generally the rule, mitzvahs. I know there's exceptions to Netilas Yadayim and Adlakas Neiros, but generally that's the halacha. Kol birchas mitzvah should be over l'asiyos. But we don't make the bracha too far removed before. So we won't say the bracha holding the tefillin in the hand. We'll have the tefillin already on the arm, just about ready to tighten, and that's when we say the bracha, because it has to be over and not over the over. It shouldn't be too far removed before the mitzvah. Here there's a fascinating discussion in Rishonim. What is the mitzvah of tzitzis? Is the mitzvah of tzitzis a parallel to the aveira of shatnez? Shatnez, if you put on a beged which has woolen linen, so the second you put it on, you violated the mitzvah of shatnez. The parallel to that would be the moment you put on the tzitzis, the garment with tzitzis, you have done the mitzvah. You can take a different approach and say like this. The mitzvah of tzitzis is like this. If you are wearing a four-cornered garment, now you have a duty to go and put in tzitzis. But you're not a violation. The rega you put it on, you have now a duty, but it's not a violation the rega you put it on. There's a mitzvah now to put it in tzitzis. A practical consequence of this is if a person comes to shul on a Shabbos morning and everyone's wearing a talis, is embarrassed to sit without a talis, the only talis in shul is one which has got posel tzitzis. So in a week he's not allowed to put it on because he's mevatel mitzvah tzitzis. On Shabbos he's allowed to put on the talis. You say like this. You're putting it on now. Okay, go put in tzitzis. But Shabbos is on us. He can't put in tzitzis. So he's allowed to put on the talis with the posel of tzitzis. Is he embarrassed? Okay, fine. But this is because this is the thinking here. It's also in the Mordechai, in Mordechai, I think in Menachos, where the whole sugi of tzitzis. But at any rate, this is to say that tzitzis is not like shatnez. Tzitzis is a regulator. The mitzvah of tzitzis is a regulator. It's a moment later. As a result, we have here a business of over the over. If you make the bracha before you do the atifa, so then it's over the over. It's two stages before. You haven't even put them on to say, oh, now I put them on, I have here to put tzitzis. And that's why the Shulchan Aruch takes the opinion that once you've started, before you complete the atifa, okay, that's when you say the bracha. For some reason, now there's a different opinion in Rishonim. Some will hold like the mitzvah of tzitzis is parallel to shatnez. There's a Tosfos in Yevomis Daf Tzadik who seems to take the view it's the parallel of shatnez. But all right, okay. Now let's take a look. Now what did the Alter Chassidim do? They followed the Siddur. We know that the Siddur was written by the Alter Rebbe after the Shulchan Aruch, and when there's a conflict of opinion, we'll follow the Siddur. And therefore they say, since it says in the Siddur to make the bracha before the atifa, so that's what they did. They made the bracha with the talis, with the talis over their head, and from the front. So they have two makifim, made the bracha, and then they used to do the atifa. Now let's take a look in the Hayom Yom of Hey Elu, where it says the following: our custom in wearing a talis gadol, we put the talis gadol on the shoulder, on the right shoulder. Then you're biting the tzitzis. By the way, I'm going to confess, on the second day of Yom Tov, I don't always put it on my shoulder. I just have my talis like on the table. It's all messed up. So but just check it. Sometimes I'm feeling very pious. I'll put it on my shoulder also. Okay. B'shas avdike oimrim borchen nafshi. Then we take the talis from the shoulder. We spread out the talis, kiss the edges of the talis, swing it round from front to the back. Then you start the bracha of l'hisate v'tzitzis. Once it's on your back, siyum habrocha somuch lekrichas beis kranfes yamin sviv So the way you get the impression is you start the bracha when it's already on you from the back, but you haven't done the atifa yet, and you say the bracha, you stretch out the bracha until you're at this point just before you throw it over your shoulder. So it looks like the Hayom Yom is a kind of compromise, trying to incorporate both the Siddur and the Shulchan Aruch, that you start the bracha just as you're beginning to wrap yourself, yeah, or we could say just a moment before, but then you start the bracha then, but you continue with the bracha as you are just about to wrap yourself. I think that's what. So all right. So what does it mean? This atif is wrapped around your body, but you haven't thrown it over your shoulders. That could be how it's fulfilling what's written in the Shulchan Aruch. Yaschil is atif kodim she'is atif legamri. It's not totally clear in the Hayom Yom. I know you can argue with me about it, but it certainly says that the broch is not when you have the towels in front of you. That's no question, yeah? The minhag Chassidim yesteryear would be to make the brocha whilst it's in the front. But here it says clearly you swing it round, and then you start the brocha. Therefore, that's now. Then he refers to this whole lomdus, which I've been telling you, the machlekes harishonim with the comparison to shatnez, etc. This is discussed actually in this She'eres Yehuda, the Alter Rebbe's brother. There's two tshuvas which seem to be in opposite positions about this. And then the Divrei Nehemiah, who was a contemporary of the Tzemach Tzedek, a colleague of the Tzemach Tzedek. So this whole lomdus is discussed there at length. But so that's the background to this whole story. Okay, let's move on. So someone asked me a question. We know in Gemara it says, Chayole Beis David, Kol HaYotzem L'Mechemes Beis David get krisis koistev le'ishtei. That the soldiers in the army of David HaMelech would write a get to their wives before going to battle. Why is that not done, or not followed nowadays? So a couple of points about this. One thing is that we have here one of the davens very regular in our shul. Beitel Weiss is the Kadassia, or the union head of the Gittin department. So he told me that during the war, Rav Abramsky was in London, and there were Yiddish boys who were drafted, Yiddish men who were drafted into the army, to the British army, to go into Europe, and he did make a lot of effort that there should be at least authorization, a written authorization in Besdin, that they had given permission that in case they do not return after X amount of time, the Besdin should write a get for their wives. And now I might get the facts slightly wrong, the Besdin's premises was in the East End at the time, and the premises of the Besdin had a direct hit, was bombed during the war. And Rav Abramsky, afterwards, obviously, he made his way to the Besdin. It was very important for him to search through the rubble, that there was a safe. And in the safe, that's where they had those documents. And it was so important for him that those documents are still intact. So that's just an interesting thing, that they made those boys who were drafted into the British army, those who were conscientious, so they did do something to enable that the Besdin would be able to act on their behalf. Then, whilst I was doing a search, I came across a long article by the late Rav Goren, and he talks about this, and he said that this was once brought up, and the volunteers to fight we're talking about in the 50s or the 40s, if they would have to write a get, that would be a terrible deterrent. They wouldn't want to go. They weren't ready to do that. So it was like a voluntary army, and therefore they didn't agree to do that. But then it really he has a harrowing report of Gush Etzion. I don't know. I'm sure many of you know the story of the Gush Etzion, how they were completely surrounded by the Jordanians, by the Arab Legion, whatever, and there was a terrible massacre there. And it looks like he got permission. He writes, he got permission to go in, with a blindfold. He went into the premises of where it took place, where this massacre took place, to be able to help identify and to be able to permit the wives to remarry. But just basically, that seems to be the cheshbon, that it would be very discouraging. And the other thing is that Baruch Hashem is honest wissen, but the ability to identify and to keep track is nowadays so much more sophisticated, and therefore the need for such a thing is much less than it was needed in the times of David HaMelech. At any rate, it's not done, and Mizaldas nicht darfen, and as I said earlier, everyone should come home b'shleimus, in good health. Okay, someone asked me what to do with the old lulav. So here you have in Siman Tofrei Samach Daled, Yesh mi she'omer shehishana shebelulav af al pi shenizriko ein lifsoyo aleha. And he refers us to Siman Chof Aleph. This is that the article used for a mitzvah, even though you're no longer using it for the mitzvah, still you should treat it with respect, and therefore you shouldn't tread on it. So the old Hishanas and the old lulav, etc., to treat them with not to treat them with disrespect. Then we have, this is from the Mechaber Shulchan Aruch Siman Tofrei Samach Daled. And here we have in Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch Chichas Pesach, the end of Siman Tov Mem Hey, it says the following: Yesh noagin lisreif arova achometz ba'arova shechovto osi beishan arab. There are those who have the minhag to use the arovas from Hashan Araba, to use them for burning the chometz. Something used for one mitzvah it's good to use it again for another mitzvah. Yesh noagin lasses hesek me'arovas halulev befi hatanur. Some use the arovas of the lulav for the baking of the matzahs. By the way, if you want to do that, don't keep your arovas in a plastic bag. They'll just become all rotten and mushy. You have to leave them somehow in a dry place to let them breathe and evaporate, dry out. But it's interesting because the difference here, whether to use the arovas for burning the chometz, or to use the arovas for baking matzahs. Arovas, the Hishanis, is kind of more of getting misuk hagvuris, and therefore I think that could be the reason for using it for burning chometz. Whereas the arovas of the lulav is a mitzvah saseh, and therefore the parallel to that, it should be used for baking matzahs. Having said both of this, I heard that the Rebbe would not wait for Erev Pesach, and at some time during winter, it was taken down to the incinerator in the basement of 770. It was burnt Samazeh. It wasn't left till Erev Pesach. So the key is that you shouldn't use them some people use them for schach, but not to disgrace them. That's the ikki. It should be, if it has to be disposed, it should be disposed in a bag, in a respectful way. Right. Okay. So now someone asked me why eggs are parev and not fleshig. So it's an interesting question. And what I saw in Encyclopedia Talmudis, he talks about this. And although, so the question is, if you have an egg born from a nevela, if you find the egg inside the chicken, the egg is sometimes is fleshig, etc. So why is if the egg can be fleshig if it's found inside a chicken, why is the egg or not normally why is the egg parv? And basically he says that really bosser oif b'cholov is midrabanon. This is brings from poskim that cooking meat and milk is written in the Torah, and but a chicken or a bird to cook a bird in milk is the Issa Drabonon. And therefore they weren't so machmir on an egg because that's one step removed because it's Drabonon, or because each one has got the meat and milk is more lenient than treif, in the sense that from a treifa bird, if a treifa for a bird lays an egg, so then the treifus will go over to the egg also. But meat and milk is only when there's a combination. Until then, it's both of them are mutter. So these are the two reasons given why an egg doesn't have an issur of doesn't have a status of fleshik. Yes, of course, there's a question, but what about milk? But that Torah for sure is matir milk, and not as fleshik, yeah. But all right, fine. One last question which we're going to deal with, then we'll say a bit of Tehillim, and we'll say a tefillah, and that is someone asked is a ger culpable for crimes committed before he or she converted. So if a ger smashed a window, but there's a guy, and name is Megai, does he now not have to pay? No, I'm a different person. So one perhaps rule of thumb would be the kind of thing which tshuva doesn't help. If a person breaks a window and says, I'm sorry, comes to Bezdin, he still has to pay. And if a person had done a crime which is chayiv Mrs. Bezdin, so then he'd still have to have the punishment. It doesn't help if he'll stand in Bezdin and cry and say, I'm sorry and I will never do it again. That would not change his verdict. So once there's already been a psak of Bezdin, let's say if a goy had committed a crime which is warrants capital punishment, and then is megayer, then he wouldn't get off the hook. Some things there will be a difference between the verdict for a goy or for a yid that may change, but that's the general psak, the general guideline that the things which are which tshuva would help, then okay, so then also geirus is a different person would take away the guilt. But if it's something which tshuva won't change, so then that liability will remain even after geirus. Someone's asking, what about the esrig? I'm not able to make esrig jam. After some time, they shrivel and shrink and become brown. They've been dead. The truth is that even now you could, I also, it's nice to use, some people use them for besomim. Emotionally, it seems to be wrong to just throw them away now, but min hadin, just if they're wrapped respectably, they would be able to be binned even now, but certainly once they are turned brown, yeah. All right, I'm going to take a tilim. We'll say a couple of kapitelach of tilim, and then we'll say a mishaberach tefillah. We'll say kapitel chof, and let's say kapitel chof. Amaseach Mizmor David. Gan cho Adonai b'yom soro yisagev cho Shem Elahei Yaakov yishlach ezracho mikodesh u'mitzion yisadecho yizke kol min chesecho ve'loscho yedach shneselo yitin lecho chil vavecho v'chol asoscho yimale v'ranenu b'shuasecho v'Shem Eloheinu nidgel yimale Adonai kol mishal yisecho ata yodati ki Yeshia Adonai Mashiachoi ya'anehu mishmei kodshoi b'gvores Yeshia yaminoi Eile v'rechev ve'eile basusim v'anachnu b'shem Adonai Eloheinu nazkir Hema korov v'nafolo v'anachnu kamnu v'anis eidod Adonai Yeshia HaMelech Yaneinu Yem Kareinu. We've been saying after each tefillah, Chof, Chof Beis, and Samach Tes, and Kufnun, Rabbi Lu mentioned today, also to say the Rebbe's capital, which is also very relevant. But when we were saying this morning, Tilim Shabbos Mevorchim, I found capital Ein Tes very relevant. So also another one, also in capital Nunches, there's a couple of mentions of Hamas, Hamas Nochosh, Hamas Lomoy, but I'd like to go through capital Ein Tes, which I feel is very appropriate, and then we'll say that the tefillah of the Friedrich, which is attributed to the Friedrich Rebbe. Mizmel Osof Elohim Goyim Benachal Osecho Timu Esecho Kochecho Somo Es Yerushalayim Le'im Nosnu Es Nivlas Avodecho Machol Loif Hashemoyim Sar Chasidecho L'Chaisei Oretz Shov Chudomim Kamayim Svivo Es Yerushalayim Ve'ein Koiver Hinu Cherpa L'Shchenenu Lag Vokeles L'Svivo Eseinu Admo Adonai Tenaf Lo Netzach Tivar Kamoy Eish Kenosecho Shpoich Chamoscho El Hagoyim Asher Lo Yereucho Vial Mamlochos Asher B'Shimcho Lekoro Ki Yochel Tzyaakov Bebes Noveu Heishamu Al Tizkar Lonu Avenis Teshoinim Mahi Yekadmunu Rachamecho Ki Daleinu Lo'ed Azreinu Leheishenu Al Dvarkvich Mecho Atzilenu V'Chapeir Al Chateseinu L'Man Shmecho Lomo Yemru Hagoyim Ayeh Leheim Voda B'Hagoyim Le'inenu Nikmas Dam Avodecha HaShafoch Tove Lefonecho Enkas Osir Kegoydol Zreacho Hoyser B'Neisem Musa V'Hoshev L'Shchinenu Shivasayim El Chekom Cherposom Asher Cherfucho Adonai Anachnu Amcho V'Tzei Marisecho Noide Lecho Le'oilom L'Dei V'Dei Nesapet Elosecho. I got this, came to my direction, this tefillah, which is a tribute to the Friedrich Rebbe from the times of the war. I'll say each piece and then translate into English as we go one piece after the other. Yirotzim lefonecho Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elehei Aviseinu. Avir Yaakov K'desh Yisrael. Asher melitze Yosher yachnisu tfilos amcho Yisrael lefonecho. V'zchus kriyas mizmoire tehilim she'amoram David hamelech olav hasholem. V'zchus tfilos amcho beis amcho Yisrael tismali rachamim Al kol amcho beis Yisrael hamedukoim v'ananim v'yisur imoves v'rov v'kolos v'shivya. May it be your wish, Hashem, the strength of Yaakov, the holiness of Israel, that the Malachim and the angels, positive angels, should bring forth to you the prayers of your people and merit of the reading of the verses of the chapters of Tilim, which was said by David HaMelech of blessed memory, in the merit of the prayers of your people. You should be filled with mercy for your the house of Israel, of Beis Israel, those who are broken, who are being tortured in murderous torture, in starvation, in exile, and in captivity. Avinu Malkeinu, Habeit El Dam Achenu V'Ach Yiseinu Hashafuch, V'Yichbashu Rachamecha Eskascha Me'olenu V'Yagoylu Rachamecha Al Midosecha. Our Father, our King, look at the blood of our brothers and sisters which has been shed, and may your mercy overpower your anger from us, and may your mercy override the other attributes. Ono ov harachamim, chus v'rachem al bonecho miyachadecho, v'shmoy oisom beisom v'zara me'sono boteinu v'zareinu, miyad ha'oivim hakomim aleinu v'aleihem v'aleinu l'chalisenu. Avrev tucho v'gedel chastecho, tatzel oisom v'esono mikol ro v'tzuko v'nego machlo, miro shevi uvizo, mikol pachad mikol tsar, chol hazedim kerega yevedu v'chol eve amchom heir yikaresun. Oh, please, Father, merciful Father, have compassion and mercy on your children who see you as the one deity. Protect them, their families, their seed, us, our families, our seed, from the enemies who are rising against them and against us to annihilate us. With your great goodness and your compassion, your kindness, save them and us from all evil and suffering, illness, plague, famine, captivity, plunder, from any fear and any pain, and all those who are willfully trying to harm us should be destroyed immediately, and all the enemies of your people should be annihilated speedily. Ono melech chanon v'rachum, shmoyer es amcho Yisrael v'chol mokim shehem, v'shem kodshecho tesagvim b'seshiyim, man rachamecho hamrubim, k'mo shenemar ki el rachum adonai elhecho, lo yarpecho v'lo yashchisecho v'lo yishkach es bris avisecho asher nishpa lohem. So please, Father, compassionate, merciful, protect your Jewish people wherever they are, and with your holy name you should exalt them and save them, and because of your great mercy, as it says, Apostle, Hashem is a merciful God, and he will not let loose of you, and he will not destroy you. He will not forget the covenant which he swore to our forefathers. Chai v'kayom, aseh lanu nisim v'niflois, v'zchusto yaseinu hakdosho, v'fidei amcho v'nachalosecho, v'nei Yaakov, v'beis Yisrael, midei seineinu, v'ofer atzas kol hakomim aleinu, v'ashenu v'onenu v'neseinu, v'ilolenu v'tapeinu. Zchoir bonecho v'nesecho, ha'metzapim lishuoscho kol hayom, yiu no neged ponecho, tzoreseinu oslo yisenu, or evo anyenu, v'rivo rivenu, v'yedu chulam, ki ato kadosh Yisrael u'meshiyam. Oh, one who is living and always existing, perform for us miracles and wonders in the merit of our holy Torah, and redeem your people, your heritage, the Israel, the house of Israel, from our enemies. Confuse the scheming of those who are rising against us, our children, our sons, daughters, wives, little ones. Remember your children, your sons and daughters who are anticipating your salvation the whole day, and may it be before your countenance our suffering, our toil, and see our pain, battle our quarrels, and they should all know that you are the Holy One of Eden and their Savior. Ono avinu el mo'ozeinu, rachem no aleinu ve'al kol amcho ve'chol merchavei sevel. Hokel me'aleinu cholonu yisuri chevli Moshiach, v'shlach lonu es Moshiach tzidkenu lekabes nidochenu me'arba kanfes oretz, v'yilchenu kemimis la'atzenu v'shom na'avodcho beveis Elohim, Yishalayim yirakodesh amen v'amen. Please, O Father, our God of our strength, have mercy on us and on all your Jewish people all over the world, and lighten for us the pain, the pangs of Mashiach, and send to us the righteous Mashiach to gather in our dispersed from the four corners of the earth, and he will lead us, standing upright to our land, and there we will serve you in the house of God in Yerushalayim, the holy city. Amen to Amen. Don't forget also to add in Stoker, and I wish you all a good tavoch, and we should hear Besudas tapes.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Diane Raskin.
Well,
Thank you.